going on, team? Proof here, coming at you with another recruit report, and this time it's going to be for the new grade 3 Strider unit for Dudley that came out. His name is Dudley Turbolaplor, and what he does is auto Vanguard once per turn, generation break 1. When your unit with Dudley and its card name is placed on rearguard circle during the battle phase of your turn, this unit gets plus 5,000 to the end of turn. And also during your turn, when your G unit strides, choose one of your Vanguards, and until end of turn, it gets auto Vanguard, Soul Blast 1. When your unit with Dudley, when your rearguard with Dudley and its card name attacks, you may pay the cost. If you do, the unit that attacked gets plus 5,000 power until the end of the battle, and at the end of that battle, put that unit into your soul. I think he's really interesting, and some of the notes I have is that he combines with Dudley Caligula and with Dudley Geronimo. With Caligula, he helps give Caligula's plus 2,000 power boost to Dudley's that he calls an extra oomph. So he makes your 9Ks attack for 16,000, which is a pretty significant number. And especially in the terms of the control matchup, such as Link Jokers, your Kageros, things like that, it helps them attack and get out the way like spikes normally do. Only difference is that they go into the soul instead of going into the deck, which can hurt in the grand scheme of things, depending on how you time it up and depending on what you have your deck makeup in and of itself is. But like Caligula, it kind of forces you into a more Dudley centric deck. So he's not great with, in my opinion, he's not great with like your Baden Jessica decks, which have a really high concentration of non-Dudley units. So you won't be able to get as much benefit there as you would in a pure Dudley deck. But in the context of a pure Dudley deck, being able to get plus 7,000 with Caligula, being able to get plus 10,000 with Geronimo, especially for your back row attackers, is really strong. And it helps give the Dudley deck a better finisher option, especially since before now it was strictly Geronimo. We're trying to out advantage them thanks to Dudley Jessica's GB2 skill, which she gives plus 2,000 to your front row. I believe it's only Dudley's, but I can't remember off the top of my head. But he helps give the pure Dudley deck a much better finisher option to help it kind of compete more in the late game sense, especially since the Ryzen with Miracle Ace is such a strong finisher that if you want to go Dudley and you want to have something comparable to that, you now have an option with Turbolaplor plus Geronimo, which I find really good. And he has no problem with his Soul Blast 1 cost because it feeds itself as you attack more. So you pretty much net 0 in Soul, and you can keep doing it as long as you can keep attacking with Dudley units, which is helpful and really, and in my opinion, I like it a lot. Let's see. Some of the cons that I mentioned, kind of like the higher concentration of Dudley units, like I mentioned a little bit ago, it can be a con if you want to use him outside of your Dudley deck. You need to keep that in mind with your deck building process, which is where it comes down to the skill of the user itself. And then to me, I find his Vanguard skill pretty pointless, or at the very least mediocre, because Dudley at the current moment have very few ways to be able to call out during the battle phase, one of which is Dudley Mason, which has to hit. Another way of which is Misery, which is not a Dudley. So if you use Misery with it, that means you have to commit that space to Misery, which is a less concentration of Dudley units within your deck, which is what I mentioned before. You need to keep that in mind while you're building your deck. And so I don't find his Vanguard skill that great, but he more than makes up for that with his stride skill to be able to push the opponent over the edge there. And so overall, with the rating, I give him a solid 3 out of 5, because I don't think he's going to be your principal ride option, especially because in the mid game you want to try and keep those units on the board for either defending or directing opponent attacks at them, as opposed to just sticking them into your soul. But in terms of being a finisher, like, he's really good in that regard, because the total 10K with Geronimo is good, or the 7K if you're lacking field with Caligula is strong. Even He even kind of combines with the likes of Picaro as well as your second shot, because he's not restricted to Dudley units to be stritten on. You can combine it with the likes of Danford Lily if you have charge units for whatever reason. Combine it with Flash Bruce. Combine it with Picaro if you don't want to go Caligula, because the Counterblast 1 pay 2 cards versus Counterblast 2 pay 1 card could matter in certain instances, especially because Picaro is, his window to look in is your whole deck versus the top 11 for Caligula. So in that regard, it can definitely combine up well for you there. And so I think he's very middle of the road because of the way you need to build your deck and how it overall interacts with the rest of your deck. But I see it having potential, and that's what's important, especially for the likes of a pure Dudley deck. So let me know what you guys think down below. Like, comment, subscribe for more, and look out for the next recruit reports, and look out for the previous ones as well if you haven't seen those yet. And until next time, peace, be easy.